Is going on, guys? Welcome back to Randland Parked. I'm sorry for the noise this morning. I got the old Haas running some parts over there. It's making a little bit of noise. That's kind of the nature of the thing. But today, we are going to stop working on the Land Cruiser once again because I have ADD and jump between projects, as you guys all know. And we are going to bring the Crew Cab 76 Ford back in and start working on it again. What we are going to do, I'm not really sure yet. Haven't decided. But I do have a couple updates for you, so I guess let's get into it and figure out where we're going to go today. Alright guys, so that intro that you just saw was the last video I intended on filming. That was probably like 2.5 months ago, and I never even filmed it. I probably took the Land Cruiser out of the garage. In my defense, I think I probably put the Crew Cab in there at that point. I don't know, but then since then the Crew Cab's been out, the Land Cruiser's been back in. A lot's been going on. My wife did give birth 10 days ago now, so we have a newborn, so that's really throwing a wrench in things. But I have actually been working on the trucks, that is to say, and I'm going to keep working on them, just maybe a little bit slower right now. So my apology for not getting a video out in the last 3 months. It's been really hectic. I also have some business things that have been going on that have been keeping me really busy, so that's all been happening. On the Land Cruiser, since I had it in that intro video, it's done. Like I tore it back apart, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, redid all the wiring. Not redid it. I pinned everything through the bulkhead that wasn't pinned through the bulkhead already. I fixed like a wandering idle problem. It ended up just being a TPS relearn that I never did. I loomed all the rest of the wiring. I took the pedal box out and I painted the pedals, and I put like undercoating on the faces of the pedals, so that's all nice and done. The only thing it's waiting for is a windshield. Once the windshield gets here, we'll drive it. I have the seals and everything. I'm just waiting on a windshield. It's like back ordered or something. If it goes much longer, I'll just have one cut, or I'll like polish the old one and put it back in, but I really wanted a new one. Anyway, that thing is out of the garage. It's actually in the, temporary garage over there where the Honey Badger, which I'm sitting on, usually resides. Since then, I got the Crew Cab back in the garage, and we have made some progress on that. So I'm going to show you what we've done, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do today. Okay, so first things first. This axle, Dana 44, maybe? I don't even know what it is. I don't know. Doesn't matter. The original axle out of the Crew Cab, our 76 Crew Cab F250, is sitting on the ground in the driveway, and that is because I sold it. Why did I sell it? Well, because this thing's getting Superduty axles. So, while I haven't been filming, I went ahead and rebuilt an entire ball joint Dana 60 out of a Superduty. It has new everything. Not new everything, I shouldn't say that. I didn't take like the carrier apart or anything, but I did take the cover off and inspect it. It all looks good. Doesn't have hubs on it right now, but I have brand new hubs for it. It's got new radius arm bushings in the axle. What a pain in the butt those are. If you've never done that before but plan to, my thoughts and prayers are with you. That's absolutely horrendous. It has new outer seals. It has new ball joints. I have new steering components for it. And obviously, it has been stripped and pour 15'd. It looks good. It's all ready to go. I also have the radius arms out of the same truck. Also, stripped, pour 15'd, new radius arm bushings in these two. Also a pain in the butt. I also got new doors, front doors. They're completely rust-free. I got these for free on Facebook Marketplace. Right? Crazy. I messaged the guy about them. Well, actually, let me start at the beginning. So I found another set of doors. I bought a whole front clip. I'll start there. Bought a whole front clip. I think I've showed that on the channel already. If not, it's just Ford sheet metal. All original Ford sheet metal. Radiator support, hood, fenders, inner fenders, all of it. And the guy had doors, but I couldn't fit them in my car because I took the Ford Fusion, the work truck, And he had doors, and I made a deal with him to buy these doors for $100. And I was like, dude, that's the deal of the century, right? They were pretty rust-free. They had a little bit of rust, but nothing I couldn't fix. And I made a deal, and I was going to go back. I texted the guy when I was going to go back, and he said, yo, I just bought another dent side. I want to keep those doors. So I was heartbroken, Missed out on the deal. That sucks. I get back on Facebook Marketplace. I'm perusing around a little bit. I find a set of doors relatively local to me. They're like 20 miles away, but the guy was willing to meet. I messaged him. And I think he wanted like $200, and I was like, I'll give you $150. And he was like, I'll tell you what, I've had so many flakes that don't show up. If you actually show up, you can have them for free. I said, I'm your guy. I met him halfway, gave me the doors. That's how I got free doors. Deal of the century. So yeah, that's those. They do have the trim holes in them, but you can just shave those off. That's no big deal. They have absolutely no rust, no dents, no nothing. Just gotta strip them and prime them. And we are off to the races on front doors. What else has happened? Well, I took all the steering components out of the truck because it's gonna get all Super Duty stuff. Also, those Super Duty axles have a different bolt pattern. So I bought these pretty cool aluminum American racing wheels with 35s on them. I wanted just rollers, but I got a great deal on these. I think they were like 250 or 300 bucks for all of it. So I just bought those. They might be too wide. I think you need to run a lot of offset because the Super Duty axles are wider than the original axles. But I don't know. We'll see. They're rollers. And then the big thing. Obviously, you need to mount all this Super Duty suspension and steering and, you know, coils, all that stuff. So I bought the kit from Battleborn Brakes to do that. Shout out to Battleborn Brakes. That is the kit to have. Everyone told me that. So there's one shock tower, radius arm mounts, steering components, all the sheet metal brackets that we're going to be welding into the frame in this video, and one coil bracket already on the frame, which has been completely stripped down, stripped the paint off, and is ready to start welding on and coating. So there's nothing on it. I took those wonky motor mounts out that I showed you guys before. That's all done. I actually got to do some more grinding on this side, but you guys remember how it was ridiculous. Anyway, today we are going to put a Super Duty Dana 60 under this thing. For anyone that wants a little refresher, this is our crew cab F250 factory highboy numbers matching truck. Awesome truck. And today it's going to get the first of the suspension upgrades. So let's get cracking. I think what I need to do is start cutting apart the cross member in the front to fit the Super Duty steering box, which I have right here. So let's go. All right. So this kit, the Battleborn Brakes kit, like I mentioned before, is absolutely the way to go for high boys. Check out the honey badger in the background there. She's looking good. Actually, it's really worse for the wear. I got to bring that thing back in and do some work on it. But we're working on this right now. I'm easily distracted. Anyway, yeah, this is the way to go. It is really nicely fabricated. I really don't have anything negative to say thus far. The instructions here, pretty good. There's a couple things I'm going to point to right now that maybe are a little interesting. For one, steering bracket used to go right here, steering box that is to say, and it like passed through the frame through that hole. That's not going to be a thing anymore because this had like a weird like old hydro assist setup. I don't know, it's weird. It had a ram on the steering. We're going to use a conventional box. This is from the 2010 F250 frame cut I got. Same thing I got the axle out of, same thing I got the radius arms out of. I also got the steering box and a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, that requires you to cut this cross member here. Take a big notch out of it, and that's what those plates are for over there, to weld it back in, box it back in. Really nice setup, right? And then he gives you a plate on the inside here, and then it bolts on the outside here. Life is good. The best thing about it is that's the only modification to the factory frame. So if you know what you're doing and you cut this carefully, should be able to keep that piece, and the frame would be 100% transitionable, if that's a word, back to, you know, how it was. 460 or whatever you want to put in it, factory everything. I have all the factory steering components, so that'd be cool. Kind of retains some value that way. Anyway, we don't really care about that for right now. What we care about is where to notch this thing. Now, here's my slight concern. Here's the instructions. It doesn't really define how much you notch. So that's the front right there, right? So it looks to me like the bottom rail is completely gone. The top rail, some of it stays, which makes sense to me. He does show you that you cut 6 inches in. That's cool. But it doesn't show how much of the top you leave. Now, let me point out why it makes sense that you do that. Where is the bracket? I just had it. Okay, so this is the track bar bracket. That track bar bracket is going to go right there eventually once I grind some stuff off the frame. Now it sits like right in there, up against the back side of this. So I'm going to assume, use some deductive reasoning here, that you take the whole back side out so that can weld in, or that doesn't actually weld in, but a piece of it welds in, another piece that it comes with, and then you leave exactly that width on the top, which is probably to like right here, but we'll measure, and then you come back 6 inches and just take a big old square off this thing. I'm going to measure, be very, very careful, and then that's what I'm going to do. I'll show you guys that once we're done. But that's where we're going to start. And this is definitely going to measure twice, cut once things, because we don't want to butcher this thing. These things are extremely valuable trucks. So we're not going to butcher it. We're going to be careful, but we are going to cut it up. So let's get going. Okay, guys, so there's our cut inside the blue lines. I don't necessarily think this is quite right, like looking at the pictures in the instructions and then measuring up some of the plates that it comes with over there. Like, I don't think it's right, but also, like, I might be able to tighten this up and make it fit a little bit better. So what this is a conservative cut. It's close, it's conservative. We're not going to go above and beyond and then have to fill a 1/4 inch gap with the MIG welder. So I'm going to go ahead and hack this out. And then I'll just show you guys when I'm done. So this is what it looks like after you butcher the really valuable frame. Alright guys, so it's notched out. And I did a pretty clean job. It's all pretty good. I got to get this out of here. That's going to be a little bit more of a pain in the butt. But that's alright. Maybe a Sawzall I can get in there and notch it a little bit. Either way, that's how that works. So track bar bracket over here. I got to weld the actual bracket on. But it bolts in there. You got to drill a couple holes too. And then it goes down below. This becomes the new bottom of your cross member, and then you plate the whole rest of it in once you've welded nuts in there. Now the problem is that part is too long, for sure. Now the only dimension that they give you, as I showed, is this 6-inch dimension, right? And I think that's even wrong. So the only dimension that they actually give you in the instructions is wrong, because that plate is not going to go in like that. So I got to cut another, what, I don't know, 1/2 inch out, something like that. Probably even a little bit more. I'll probably start with a 1/2 inch and see how that works. And a 1/2 inch would make all that fit a whole lot better either, because you can see there's about a 1/2 inch overlap. So that's kind of an interesting little bugaboo, I guess I would say, with the instructions. However, the top cut looks pretty mint. So I think I deduced that correctly, that now I can just plate this off flat, box it in, we're all done. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a little bit more out of this thing. See if I can get that plate and this plate to fit right. We'll just go from there. Okay, that took longer than I thought it would, but it's in. The plate is done. The nuts are welded to the plate. I also got nuts welded inside the frame rail here, which I didn't even talk about, but that's part of the instructions also. And then I welded the plate in. You can see there's some fitment issues in the back there. I'm going to have to make something to fill that, and there's no avoiding that because the plate just doesn't follow the contour of the cross member, but it's not bad. And then here's the track bar bracket all bolted in. You can see how that works now. It goes and bolts under the bottom side. So that's kind of nice to support that cross member and also to support the track bar. The next thing we're going to have to do is actually weld the track bar tabs on, which go right here. That way the track bar can go that way. So let's get going on that, and then it's going to be steering box time, and we're probably going to be in the home stretch after that. All I have to do is, you know, box it all in, take it all apart, paint it all, blah, 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 blah. Let's do the track bar. Okay, so track bar tabs. This is actually really cool. So what they give you is these 2 flat patterns. All you have to do is bolt it into your factory track bar, like so. And then, see if I can do this with one hand, I don't even know. You put it up here on the track bar bracket, just like that, basically. And I wouldn't just try to center it on those bolts. I would put it on the edge of that bracket right there. So this thing is, again, lasered out or water jet to fit. It fits like a champ. And you could basically just tack these things in just so they are lined up with those edges, which you can see on both sides they are. It's about centered on the bolts, something like that, and then you have your track bar in the right position. Now, they say that you can use a stock track bar with this. I'll buy an adjustable one, if for no other reason than because I don't want to strip this and rebuild it and put new bushings in it, because that sucks, and they're cheap and easy to get, adjustable. So I'll just be doing that, but this is how you want to put the track bar in, because you want it to be the right width for the bushing. So always bolt the track bar in, weld the tabs in, then you're off to the races. So I'm going to go ahead and just tack them in here for now, and then we can start tacking the what's the word I'm looking for? The plates for that cross member in there. And then we're going to be about done with the welding. There's not that much welding left. I think there's some spacers for the steering box and stuff like that, but we're going to be in the home stretch. So let me get this tacked up, and then I will show you what that looks like. All right, so we got our track bar bracket tacked on here. It's pretty nice. Again, like, this is a great way to sell the kit. I mean, that's nice. It works good. And we've moved on to the next step. This is the steering plate. It actually goes on the inside. However, the instructions tell you to bolt it onto the outside, and all these plates kind of bolt together, which is pretty cool because the frame is not straight, so that's how you make straight plates work, is they overlap a little bit. Anyway, it's really, really nice. You bolt it on the outside temporarily, and then you use this little spacer, which is supplied, put it in those holes, and then you can drill 9/16 holes through, and that's the only 2 additional holes to the frame that you add. All these other ones were already here, which is pretty cool, I guess. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and drill those real quick, and then I'll show you what we do after that, because this plate actually goes, again, on the inside, not on the outside. It's just used as a template on the inside for now. So let's get this drilled. So we got our holes drilled here. It was actually kind of a pain in the butt to get it right. I had to waller them out a little bit. That is a technical term, don't worry. But I also took it the next step. I pulled out the power steering box mount plate, welded these spacers on, which are really nice because they space through the frame so you don't crush it when you tighten it down. Awesome. And then I went ahead and bolted it in these 2 locations. The kit comes with these nuts specifically so you can use the power steering bolts and cinch this thing down. It also comes with this spacer and another 7/16 bolt so you can hit the factory hole, pull this thing up against the spacers, and then you can tack weld it in. Get it all kind of nicey nice. So probably what we're going to do right now is start tacking it in, and you can see how this is kind of going to come together. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stuff this plate in here one-handed, but I am going to try. Good enough. So that one goes right there. This one goes right there. This is going to turn out really, really nice. As you can see, the kit coming with all these pre-cut brackets is the coolest thing ever. Like, it's nice. Anyway, I'm going to hit you guys with some time lapse now. We're going to get this all tacked in because I really want to move on to radius arm brackets and get this damn axle under here. Like, that's what we want to do. So let's get the power steering out of the way. Cue the time lapse. Well, that's it for now, boys and girls. It's all tacked in. As you saw, I did weld through primer on the back side of everything. What you didn't see is I forgot to do the back side of this plate, but fortunately it's got this crack in the top, and I think I got it. Also sprayed it through the front. So I think it's all weld through primed. So that won't rust back there. Now let's talk about this kit. A couple things. One, it fits well. Like, the bolts are good. They'll hold the power steering box in there. I did try to mock up the box, and there's a little boss on it that hits this plate. And then I started thinking, like, maybe that's how I installed it, but like, I did that flush, and this plate is based off 3 factory mount holes, all of which I double checked and they go through. So there's nothing I could have done different, that is to say. I guess cut this further, but then I wouldn't have had a clean seam right here to weld. So I don't know, like, it kind of has to go together the way it is. And yeah, there's a boss that hits right there. I could probably grind that boss off. Maybe some steering boxes are different than others. I'm not sure. But either way, that's resolvable. Another little thing, I guess. Here's the 3rd power steering box bolt. That's a problem. Hits the frame right there. So I'm going to have to notch that. Again, small thing. Obviously, I do a lot of fabrication, so that's not a problem. And then it comes to the what I would consider bigger thing. I don't like this whole gap here. And it doesn't show in the instructions if, like, there's a plate that's supposed to go in there. If there is, I don't have it. Unless it's this tiny little thing that did come with the kit. But it doesn't even show where this thing goes. I had always just assumed it went right here in this gap to fill that up. But maybe it goes there. I don't know. If I put it in, though, you'll never get that bolt in. So, I don't know. Maybe you put it in from the bottom? I'm not sure. Again, I will just notch this out, and then I will plate across, and we will have a nice firm bracket. Those of you that have been watching the channel for a while probably saw me make the one for the Land Cruiser from scratch. Actually, it's right here. I'll show you. And it's a really similar design. Obviously, I built it, but you can see on this one, it is welded everywhere. Also, the plate is thicker, but it's the same deal. Boss is welded on, and yeah, this one goes through the frame in a couple places, but that's how I did the Saginaw steering on the Land Cruiser, and I welded it everywhere, and that makes me feel, you know, at least reasonably safe about it. This is suboptimal, I think, for me. I'll fix it, but I don't know. That's not how I would have done it. Anyway, that's probably going to be it for today. Not this video, but tonight for me, physically. So yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and we're going to actually put the radius arms under this thing and put an axle under it. So let's get moving. Guys, came back the next day. I've had some time to pontificate this. That's a 10-point word. Good use of vocabulary. I've had time to think about this, and like with most things, there's about 10 ways to do it wrong and 1 way to do it right. So I decided to just bite the bullet and do it right. I cut all the spot welds, moved one of the plates in, created room. It looks like this now. There's the steering box all mocked up. You can see there's room in the front. It's just, you know, the bolts are just started in there just to make sure everything aligns. It looks good. And basically what I did was I moved this plate right here in about a ½ an inch. It's not what I wanted, because now there's a gap back here that maybe you can see. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. You can see it. Down in there between this plate and that plate on the front that I moved. I'm going to have to fill that, but I have to fill these anyway. So it's kind of whatever, you know. I don't really care either way. This one fit good, and then it fits so much better up against this bottom plate now. So that's a nice seam. I can weld it easy. Backside's already welded. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Tacked in, mocked up. We still have a lot of work to do to get this the way I want it. Like I mentioned, you know, I got a plate in the top. I'm going to plate in the front. Might do something here. I don't know. I guess once I do the top and the front, then we'll feel it out. But that is in. I can finish it later before I paint and stuff. Let's move on, finally. Next step. So we got our other coil bucket on. I had to do a bunch of grinding and cleaning up. You see there's a lot of damage here from where someone did some ridiculous engine mounts. But that's all stripped. Coil buckets are on. All this stuff is done. On to radius arm brackets. So this might be the most straightforward portion, albeit laborious. So the transmission cross member, which is not in here, although the 2 pieces are there, one on that side, one on this side. Those just hold it. They're riveted in through these 3 rivets. So basically what we're going to do is grind these 3 rivets off, punch them out, and then bolt this thing in. 1, 2, 3 factory rivet holes, plus this hole, which is right there already drilled. And then once you're done, you put, I believe, 3 holes through the frame in the bottom using the bracket as a guide, bolt it there, and you're done. This is actually kind of convenient because I can take those cross member brackets out and sand and paint behind them, which will be good because I guarantee there's rust building up back there. So, like I said, pretty simple, but a little bit laborious. So we're going to start grinding on this side, and let's see if we can get one of these brackets on. So I got the bracket installed. You guys saw me grind them out, knock the rivets out. I took it one step further, went ahead and did the other side without showing you guys. Then I got carried away, installed the radius arms, bolted them to the axle. So sick. Looks badass. Obviously that's a lot more travel than it actually has, but it looks freaking awesome like that. We are getting there, guys. I'm super excited. Next thing I'm gonna do right now is finish welding up in here, not this gap and not finish this plate, but weld all of this up. That way I can weld up the traction bar mount or the track arm mount, put it back on, and then I can bolt it in, and we can start getting ready to like put hubs on this thing and put it on its wheels. So let's do that right now. And she's welded. So came out pretty nice. Pretty happy with the welds. I don't know, I'm a little bit of a stickler about welds, but it is MIG welding. It's never going to be that nice. It's not like we TIGged the whole thing. Track bar bracket looks really quite good. Definitely solid. I don't really know what the next step is here. I kind of have to sit down and think about it maybe. I guess the logical thing would be to put the track bar on, put some hubs on this thing, get the axle up in the right position, and then put the coils in and sit it on tires and see what the ride height looks like. I'm not 100% sure that's really necessary. I do have to take a lot apart to paint it anyway. So is that necessary? I don't really think so. Probably the more logical thing would be to put the track bar on it, make sure that's in the right position and everything sits correctly and sits flush and is mounted right and the track bar fits. Once that's done, I might as well just tear it down and paint it. So we'll probably go that direction. Let me wait till all this cools and then I'll come back. I'll put the track bar bracket on. We'll bolt the track bar on. We'll see where this axle sits at that point, and we have to jack it up so we can get that on there. Make sure it sits between the frame rails level, or square that is, I guess. And then we'll move on from there. So let me show you what it looks like with the track bar bracket on. So after thinking about it a little bit, what I decided to do was just paint up the areas that are behind the new chassis mounts, if you will. So behind the coil buckets here on both sides, behind the track bar here, I painted the actual track bar bracket there, and then I painted inside and outside behind the radius arm mounts. So now that means we can install all this, but first I do want to get in here and grind down some of these welds and get all that smoothed out. So I'm going to do that first. Then we're going to install everything once and for all, tighten it all down correctly. The hubs came today for this axle. So we should be able to just bolt this thing in, put the track bar on, even though I got to take it back apart to replace that ball joint, which hasn't showed up yet. And then I think we can roll this thing out of the shop, and I can show you what it's going to look like on the Superduty suspension. So I guess let's do some grinding. So after thinking about it a little bit, what I decided to do was just paint up the areas that are behind the new chassis mounts, if you will. So behind the coil buckets here on both sides, behind the track bar here, I painted the actual track bar bracket there, and then I painted inside and outside behind the radius arm mounts. So now that means we can install all this, but first I do want to get in here and grind down some of these welds and get all that smoothed out. So I'm going to do that first. Then we're going to install everything once and for all, tighten it all down correctly. The hubs came today for this axle. So we should be able to just bolt this thing in, put the track bar on, even though I got to take it back apart to replace that ball joint, which hasn't showed up yet. And then I think we can roll this thing out of the shop, and I can show you what it's going to look like on the Superduty suspension. So I guess let's do some grinding. So there she is, guys. You saw the time lapse. Everything is bolted up. I got hubs on this thing. I got my roller wheels and tires on it, which are awesome. They're like aluminum American racing wheels. They're really cool, but way too wide. Also, they're 16s, and I don't think the calipers are going to fit. You really need 17s, but nonetheless, good rollers until we get this thing more put together. It works. So we are all set. Everything is pretty awesome. It's pretty centered in the frame. Track bar works pretty well, although we will, likely go to an adjustable one either way. I ended up cleaning up and painting the steering box also. Kind of started thinking about my bracket solution here, if you will. I think what I'm going to do is weld up here and put a plate in, and then I'm just going to notch this out for the bolt. We should be good to go there. And then on the front, I'm just going to leave this attached with the spacer. Probably put one on the bottom also, since there's already a hole there, and that thing's going to be all good to go. So that's what we're going to do now. Going to get that kind of sorted out before we take it outside and paint it. So let's do some cutting, welding, grinding, etc., and then I'll show you what it looks like full stance wise outside, so you can get the far away shot at the truck. So yeah, let's get moving. So slight change of plans, guys. I went to start cutting these plates to fill in the sides here and also notch the frame so I could get the bolt in, and I realized that a much better solution would be to get a longer bolt, turn a spacer, and then cut the plates in and fill this whole thing in. I mean, that's so much stronger that way and so much nicer looking and a much better design. I don't think, well, actually I know for sure this was not the intent of the kit, but this is just a much better solution than the other options. Now the top is welded in. The only thing that isn't really supported is this corner. However, this bolt does still fit in here, so I'll probably just leave that bolt in there and crank it down, and that'll hold the corner. The bottom is welded completely. This is welded completely. I still have to make a spacer for the front down in there, but this thing is all done. So, got the box completely bolted in, all 3 bolts here. Everything is right in the world. Looks really good. I am very happy with that solution, obviously. So, all we have to do now is fill that and weld it up. Little filler panel down here and weld it up. We got a little bit of rust over there, which I don't think would have been there because there's no rust on the whole rest of the frame. No rot, that is to say. But when they welded in the old motor mounts, I think they just blew through in a couple spots, and those turned into rotted holes. So I'm going to replace a panel right there, and then we are going to take this thing outside and paint it. So because this video is already getting very long, I'm sure, I'm going to go ahead and fix those things. I'm going to take it outside, I'm going to paint it, and I'm just going to show you guys what it looks like when this thing is done, and then we can start talking about next steps. So I won't bore you with the details. Let me just wrap this thing up real quick. Well, that's that. She's outside, which, side note, was probably a huge mistake because it has no steering arms on it. So when I go to push it back in, both wheels are going to cant in backwards, and it's going to be a nightmare to push it back inside. But that's okay. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. She's all painted. I ended up welding in a panel over there. That's all fixed. You can't see it now, but I welded up back there, and I did the back side there. Reinstalled the steering box and just cleaned it up more and painted everything. So what I ended up doing was the actual rusty or pitted areas I did pour 15. The very clean metal areas, because a lot of this front frame was really like mint condition, no pitting at all, I did 2K 2-part epoxy, and then on top of the pour 15 I did the 2-part epoxy chassis black anyway. So it's all good to go. Definitely a permanent solution. Just as a side note, for those that don't know, pour 15, you shouldn't put it on like bare metal, or like clean metal, that is to say. If you sandblast it and it's like really pitted sandblasted finish, it's probably fine. If it's pitted from rust, it's fine. If it's still rusty, I don't really like to do that, but it's fine. If it's smooth new metal, don't do it because it'll just peel off in sheets. You're going to be really pissed off, so use something else. Anyway, we're pretty much there, guys. I also, while I was in there, threw a new track bar ball joint in. So that's all done, and then with that ball joint, the whole front end is all new rubber. Even like the radius arm bushings are new, which was a huge pain in the butt. That's pretty much it. Time to put it back inside. The question's going to become, what do we do next? So I haven't been able to find a decent Coyote yet that I want to buy, because I'm looking for a Coyote and a 6R80, and probably out of an F250 4x4, so it has the transfer case also, so I don't use the divorced case, but I haven't made that decision final yet. Or we could do the rear suspension, the Raptor leafs and stuff that we're going to do. Or I could start doing the interior and like modify the floor for the seats and stuff. Or we can go back to bodywork. So I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to depend on what parts I get next. I don't have a rear Super Duty axle yet. I don't have a Coyote and a 6R80 yet, and I don't have the interior yet. I do have everything to do the body. I have a new set of doors and a bunch of stuff, so we could finish what we started there, which won't be much work. But I'm not sure. So whatever it's going to be, you're going to see it in the next video, whenever that is. But that's going to be it for now. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Ramblin' Parked.